Hello, everyone, and welcome to the All Football Podcast, Episode 2. I am your host, David Medina, and today is Sunday, May 3rd, 2020. It's about a week after the NFL draft, and what a draft it was. A lot of surprising picks, a lot of surefire picks, and we're going to talk about all of that today. But before we get into that, I just want to talk about the draft and how it went with the whole coronavirus thing going on. And I think it went surprisingly well. It was the most viewed NFL draft of all time. And it was actually very interesting with Goodell in his own basement saying the picks. Goodell looked like a little bit near the end of the second round. He was getting a little tired, but that's understandable. And like I said, overall, I think it went pretty well. No technical glitches, which is a very, very good thing because that was a strong possibility heading into this draft. But luckily, the NFL didn't have to worry about any of that. With all that out of the way, let's dive into my analysis of each pick. With the first pick, as you know, the Bengals drafted Joe Burrow out of LSU, the national champion, the Heisman winner, and the record setter. And the Bengals had no choice but to do this. They had to pick Joe Burrow. They had to pick that young player that's going to turn their franchise around. And I do think that they got it here. They're going to have to build around Burrow. Burrow said about 2 weeks ago, he's never had a losing season in any sport in his life. He just said he's a winner. And while that is true, that may come to an end in his first season as a Cincinnati Bengal. They just don't have the talent at the moment to compete right now. Burrow may help them win a lot more games than they did last season, but there's going to be growing pains, and that's part of becoming an NFL quarterback. Speaking of talent, the whole LSU offense is now on an NFL roster. They were either drafted or signed as an undrafted free agent, and that just shows the kind of star power Burrow had around him. But without all that now, we're going to see what Burrow is really made of. The second pick, the Washington Redskins took Chase Young. Really not too much to say about this pick because it was another obvious pick they had to make. Chase Young could be what Nick Bosa was last season, and he's going to be a cornerstone for the Redskins to build their defense around. With the third pick, the Lions selected Jeff Okudah, this cornerback out of Ohio State, and not too surprising of a pick. I did honestly think that the Lions might have traded their pick, but they decided to go with Okudah, and I could see him being a perennial all-pro at the cornerback position. With the fourth pick, the Giants chose Andrew Thomas, a tackle out of Georgia, and a lot of Giants fans were not too happy about this because there was just some great talent on the board, but they do need to build up that offensive line, and Thomas was one of the better tackle prospects. So I guess a safe pick. I don't know if I would say necessarily smart, but a safe pick for the Giants. At the fifth pick, the Miami Dolphins took Tua Tagovailoa, quarterback out of Alabama. Going into the season, Dolphin fans said, tank for Tua. You did it, Dolphin fans. You got him. But I just don't think he's going to play this year. I think that they should rest him this year and let him develop behind Fitzpatrick or whatever veteran quarterback they have on that roster because Tua is just not ready this season. But I do think that Tua will be the best quarterback in this draft. Yes, better than Burrow, better than Herbert. I think he's going to be the best quarterback in this draft because Tua was a playmaker and game changer right off the bat as a freshman. As soon as he stepped foot in that national championship game, he was a difference maker. Burrow had to wait until his fifth season to be known by the nation. Tua, as a freshman, as soon as he stepped on that field, people knew who he was. They knew this kid was going to be special. I think he's going to ball out with the Dolphins. And I say 2 years, Tua is going to be taking the Dolphins to the playoffs year in and year out. With the sixth pick, the Chargers took Justin Herbert, the quarterback out of Oregon. LA, you got your guy. I think Herbert is a great pick. A lot of scouts are a little bit iffy on him, but I think Herbert is going to be a star. And he's the young face that LA football might need right now, especially the Chargers with their fan base that just seems a little bit like it struggles at points. And I hope Herbert could really change that team around. With the seventh pick, the Carolina Panthers selected Derrick Brown, the defensive tackle out of Auburn, and that was a very smart pick. Derrick Brown is an absolute game changer up the middle, and he's immediately going to make an impact on that Panthers defense. With the eighth pick, the Cardinals might have gotten the steal of the draft. They got the linebacker, I don't know if you could even call him that. I would just call him the defender out of Clemson, Isaiah Simmons. This guy is insane. And the Cardinals defense that was in the bottom of dang near every category last season is going to get a game changer. This guy could play linebacker. He could play corner. He could play safety. He's just a baller. That's the only way you could use to describe him. And the Cardinals are very, very happy to have him on their team. The ninth pick, the Jaguars selected C.J. Henderson, the cornerback out of Florida. While that Jags defense did need some help in the secondary, I do think that they did reach for Henderson, but he is one of the better corners in this draft. With the 10th pick, the Cleveland Browns selected Jedrick Wills, the tackle out of Bama, and I do think he was the best tackle in this draft. Very smart pick for Cleveland. They're really going to try to protect Baker and just take that offense to the next level. The 11th pick, the New York Jets selected Mekhi Becton, the tackle out of Louisville, and this guy had a heck of a combine. I don't think if he didn't have that good of a combine, he doesn't go here at this 11th spot. A lot of Jets fans kind of scratching their head because every star wide receiver was still on the board, and that was one of their big needs, but they did get one of the better tackles in this draft. With the 12th pick in the draft, the Las Vegas Raiders made their first ever selection, and they took the first receiver off the board, and I think it was a mistake. The Raiders took Henry Ruggs III, the burner wide receiver out of Alabama, and I really don't know what the Raiders were thinking. This was a very Al Davis move, just drafting the fastest receiver on the board. There were still guys like Jerry Jeudy and CeeDee Lamb on the board, and they decided to take Henry Ruggs. I'm really not sure what the Raiders are doing here, but we'll see if it pays off for them. With the 13th overall pick, and a surprising move, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers moved up one spot to give Brady some help on the line. The Bucs took Tristan Wirfs, the tackle out of Iowa, and I think this is an outstanding pick for the Buccaneers. Their offensive line was a little bit shaky last year, and with Brady getting a little older, they're going to have to give him a little more time, and Wirfs is the perfect tackle to put on the edge to block Brady's blind side. With the 14th overall pick, the Niners found their replacement from the DeForest Buckner trade. They decided to take Javon Kinlaw, the defensive tackle out of South Carolina, and I think this is a pretty solid pick for the Niners. While they did ship out an all-pro defensive tackle, they did replace him with a very, very good defensive tackle prospect. Kinlaw was a beast in the SEC, and I think he'll do just fine on that Niners defensive line. With the 15th overall pick, the Denver Broncos gave Drew Lock plenty of help. They drafted Jerry Jeudy, the receiver out of Alabama, and what a steal for the Broncos. A lot of people didn't even think Jeudy would slide this far, and bam. Broncos have him in Denver, and I think that offense could be pretty fun to watch this year. With the 16th overall pick, the Atlanta Falcons took A.J. Terrell, the cornerback out of Clemson, and I do think they were reaching a bit on this one. According to scouts, A.J. Terrell was probably more late first-round prospect than mid-first round, but anything is going to help that Falcons defense, which was their downfall last season. With the 17th pick, the Dallas Cowboys got the best receiver in this draft. They selected CeeDee Lamb, the wide receiver out of Oklahoma, and boy, is Dak going to have a lot of fun with this guy. This guy's route running, catching, and ability with the ball after the catch is just absolutely insane, and it's going to add to that crazy good offense in Dallas. With the 18th pick in the draft, the Dolphins are giving Tua help in the future by selecting Austin Jackson, the tackle out of USC. I do think that there was a few better tackle prospects on the board than Austin Jackson, but nonetheless, help for Tua in the future. With the 19th pick, the Raiders continued their poor draft. They really reached when they selected Damon Arnett, the cornerback out of Ohio State. This guy didn't even have a first-round grade, according to many, and the Raiders were out here selecting him at 19, and I just really don't know what they were thinking. I don't know who's in charge of their drafting, and it's funny because Mike Mayock is their GM, and the draft is a specialty, and with their first two picks in this draft, I really think that they just didn't do a good job, and I think they could have done a lot better. With the 20th overall pick, Jacksonville selected Clavon Chaisson, the edge rusher out of LSU, and boy, does Jacksonville like their pass rushers. I think that this guy is going to be a stud, though, and he's going to complement Josh Allen well in Jacksonville. With the 21st pick, the Eagles try to give Carson Wentz some help by selecting Jalen Reagor, the wide receiver out of TCU, and I think it was a mistake, too, because Justin Jefferson was there on the board for the taking, and the Eagles passed up on him and took a smaller receiver than Jefferson. And while Reagor is a burner, I don't know how well he's going to fit in that Philly offense. With the 22nd pick, the Vikings found their Stephon Diggs replacement. They took Justin Jefferson, the wide receiver out of LSU, who is very similar to Diggs in a lot of ways. I think he's going to make an immediate impact on that Vikings offense. I think he's going to be a favorite target of Kirk Cousins early on, and I think he's going to have some pretty good fantasy value. With the 23rd pick, the Chargers traded back into the first round and they took Kenneth Murray, the linebacker out of Oklahoma. Perhaps the only bright spot from Oklahoma's defense in the past few years is Kenneth Murray, and this dude's an absolute stud. Kenneth Murray even said in a tweet about 3 years ago saying that he's going to be a first-round pick in the NFL draft. And Kenneth Murray, you did it. Ball out, my guy. With the 24th pick, the New Orleans Saints selected Cesar Ruiz, a center out of Michigan, and this was just a smart, safe pick, giving Drew Brees some extra protection. This might be Brees' last year, so you want to keep him extra clean. And just overall, like I said, a smart, safe pick from the Saints. With the 25th overall pick, the Niners actually traded up from the 31st pick to give Jimmy G some help. And that help is Brandon Ayuk, the wide receiver out of Arizona State. As an Arizona State student, I got to see this guy play a lot this year, and he's a very, very phenomenal wide receiver. And the Niners for sure got a good one, and Jimmy G is going to like him a lot. With the 26th overall pick, the Packers made one of the most surprising picks in the whole draft. They traded up to select Jordan Love. Who saw that coming? Jordan Love was a quarterback that's deemed by many as a project, and this is an ideal situation as he'll have a few years to sit behind Aaron Rodgers. But why did they trade up, you ask? A lot of scouts say that they traded up to prevent the Colts from trading up to select Jordan Love because apparently the Colts were very high on him. The Packers knew that they had to strike quick, and they got their guy of the future in Jordan Love. The 27th overall pick, the Seattle Seahawks made a very head-scratching pick. They selected Jordan Brooks, a linebacker out of Texas Tech, and this was a very surprising pick because many saw Jordan Brooks as a second-round talent, and a lot of people thought that the Seahawks reached. I think they reached too, but he could be a good linebacker there in Seattle. I just think that he was picked a little early. With the 28th overall pick, the Baltimore Ravens selected Patrick Queen, the linebacker out of LSU. Great pick for the Ravens, solidifies their linebacker core. I was very high on Queen. I think he's a great prospect, and I think he's going to fit well in Baltimore. The 29th pick, the Tennessee Titans selected Isaiah Wilson, another tackle out of Georgia. And I think that a good pick for the Titans. Wilson was not the best tackle on the board, obviously, as he was late first round, but I think he will make a difference there on that good offensive line in Tennessee. The 30th pick, the Dolphins, not necessarily helping Tua, but helping their defense. They took a cornerback out of Auburn, and I am not even going to try to say his last name because I will butcher it. He is a very solid pick out of Auburn, a very good DB there in the SEC, and he should develop very nicely in Miami. With the 31st pick, the Vikings took another cornerback. They took Jeff Gladney, the corner out of TCU, and with the departure of Xavier Rhodes, I think that Gladney could step in to that number 2 cornerback role, potentially number 1 by the end of the year, and I think that he'll do very well in Minnesota. And to end off the first round with the 32nd pick, the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs selected Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the running back out of LSU, and I think that this was a good but at the same time questionable pick for the Chiefs. There was better running backs on the board than Edwards-Helaire, but Edwards-Helaire might have been the best fit for the Chiefs. He's a smaller receiving back, which is ideal for the Chiefs because on a team like that, you want Mahomes to throw the ball as much as he can because when he throws the ball, magic happens. And I think that's going to be a very nice match with Edwards-Helaire. There was also running backs on the board at the time like DeAndre Swift, Jonathan Taylor, J.K. Dobbins, but they don't really fit the Chiefs' scheme. So I think this is a pretty solid pick for the Chiefs. And that concludes the first round, but some very notable second round and later picks that I want to talk about. One, the first pick of the second round was T. Higgins to the Bengals, and I think that was an excellent pick, giving Burrow some help right off the bat. I think that Higgins and Burrow could be a connection we could be seeing for many years in the NFL. The Colts ended up taking Michael Pittman Jr., the wide receiver out of USC, and I think he's going to be a very good weapon for Phillip Rivers this upcoming season. And there was a few running backs that slid a little bit that I think are going to be considered steals when it's all said and done. The Colts ended up trading up to the 41st pick to take Jonathan Taylor, the record-setting running back out of Wisconsin, and I think that 1-2 punch with Taylor and Mack is going to be lethal for any team in the league. Combined with that offensive line of Indianapolis, watch out. The Ravens ended up taking J.K. Dobbins, the running back out of Ohio State, and I think the mixture of Dobbins, Lamar, and Mark Ingram is going to be a nightmare for teams. Teams are going to have to prepare in ways they never thought they could for their run defense when they face the Ravens this upcoming season. Another pick I really want to talk about was a pick in the 4th round, and it was a pick by the Indianapolis Colts. And as a Colts fan, I'm actually very happy with this pick. They took Jacob Eason, the quarterback out of Washington. He really slid on some people's draft boards because a lot of scouts kind of see him as a project. I feel like the Colts taking him in the 4th round is kind of a low-risk, very high-reward situation. I think that he could develop very nicely in this next year or two behind Phillip Rivers, and this was an ideal situation for him, just like the Jordan Love situation. These two guys I don't think would be able to start right off the bat, but with the proper training and development, I think they could be threats in the league. And the last player I want to talk about in this draft, who I think is going to be an absolute steal, is going to be KJ Hill, the wide receiver out of Ohio State, and he went in the 7th round to the Chargers, and I have no clue how this guy slid to the 7th round. He was very, very productive at Ohio State last season, and I think that he's going to be a very solid target for Herbert for years to come. But that's all the draft analysis I have for you guys today. It was really fun talking to you guys about this, a very fun draft to cover, and we have to just soak it all in because due to the corona, who knows when we're actually going to get football. The NFL says that they plan on starting the regular season on time with fans, but who knows in these times of uncertainty. Luckily, next week we have the schedule release, so that is something to look forward to. But after that, it's anybody's guess. All I can say in times like this are stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, thanks for listening.